Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Friends of the Dar, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. An exquisite catalogue was published for an exhibition in Lisbon at the Musée d'Orient in 2015, entitled Jewels from the Indian Run. It was produced by a brilliant scholar, tonight's speaker. Since its opening in 2008, that museum has been guided by a dual objective. That is, to not only promote essential aspects of Oriental cultural identity, but also expressing cultural engagement between the East and the West. To this goal, the museum concentrates on the Portuguese presence in Asia from the end of the 15th century. al-Athar al-Islamiyyah is pleased to present Hugo Miguel Crespo, a specialist in this field. He is an art historian who deals with art objects within the context of material history, among other disciplines, and his studies are both historically sound as well as delightfully expressed. These include such works based on another exhibition objects, such as dining at the prince's table. Recently, during the current year, he published with several Lisbon-based art dealers a large catalogue entitled Choices. Tonight's lecture deals, as the title says, with Indian jewelry and the Portuguese during the rise of the Mughal Empire. It seeks to express the complicated interaction between these two cultures. In his lecture, Hugo Crespo will be illustrating this point with objects from the Sabah collection. Tonight's discussion is highly relevant to this season's cultural season, since many of this season's lectures have featured Indian objects. Furthermore, the Sabah collection contributed to an exhibition at the Aga Khan Museum in Toronto in August 2018, which was just before our lecture seasons began, entitled Emperors and Jewels, Treasures from the Indian Courts from the Sabah collection, Kuwait. This large and varied collection of jeweled arts and jewelry is relevant to understand the technical and artistic interaction between East and West during that time. What is not relevant is the use of mobile phones during lectures. So please make sure you turn them off, and let's welcome Hugo Miguel Crespo.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the kind introduction. It is truly a great honor to give this lecture here at al-Athar al-Islamiyyah, for which I'm extremely grateful to Her Excellency Sheikha Usa Al-Salam Al-Sabah for kindly inviting me, and to Katie Marsh and Salam Kaukchi for suggesting my name. I would like to thank His Excellencies Sheikh Nasser and Sheikha Usa, and also to Salam Kaukchi, curator of the Al-Sabah collection here in Kuwait, for the visual materials made available for my research and presentation. In a time like the present, where new collections of Islamic art are being hastily assembled, namely of Indian jewelry and jeweled objects, of which many are suspected to be contemporary fakes and forgeries, collections such as the Al-Sabah must be treasured for the immense knowledge gained from the study of its objects. To be able to handle such fine objects is an absolute privilege and something for which I'm profoundly grateful. Shukran jazilan. Various documents and accounts have survived concerning the acquisition of Asian jewelry and precious stones by royal collectors and other great aristocratic Portuguese families during the Age of Discovery. In addition to some surviving archival sources, mention should be made of practical guides for buying gemstones in Asia. These circulated amongst Portuguese and other European traders and explorers embarking on the India Run, or Carreira da Índia in Portuguese, the name given to the fleet system responsible for the annual sailings that took place between Lisbon and Portuguese-ruled Asia. Soon after the well-known exploratory voyage of Vasco da Gama in 1497-1499, the Portuguese quickly set up a regular maritime connection with India. Lisbon would soon secure a leading position as a major center for the commerce and fashioning of gemstones, particularly Indian diamonds. Advantageous business conditions and customs duties supported this free trade as opposed to the situation in other Asian kingdoms where the trading of stones was strictly controlled by the sovereign as a royal monopoly. In fact, larger stones, usually larger than 9 metric carats, would always be reserved for the rulers. And this explains why, in general, only smaller diamonds would reach Europe before the arrival of the Portuguese in India. And this is also valid for rubies, which were even more prized and more valued than diamonds. Goa, a port city in the southwest India, set between the present states of Maharashtra to the north and Karnataka to the south, was taken in 1510 from the Adil Shahi rulers of Bijapur, one of the 5 sultanates of the Deccan, the entire southern peninsula of India. Established as the capital of the Portuguese state of India from 1530, Goa became an important center for the trade and distribution of gemstones and pearls, attracting goldsmiths, jewelers, and gem cutters from all points of Asia and Europe. The prominent position of Goa as one of the most important gem trade centers in early modern Asia remained unchallenged for a century, as may be inferred from the account of Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, the famous French gem trader and major supplier of liqueurs, who visited India on several occasions in the mid-17th century, and I quote, "Goa was formerly the center where the largest trade in all Asia took place in diamonds, rubies, sapphires, topazes, and other gemstones. All the miners and merchants would gather there to sell the best they had obtained from the mines, as they had full liberty to sell them there. In contrast, in their own country, if they showed anything to the kings and princes, merchants would be compelled to give the gemstones for whatever price the rulers set." End quote. Following a European prototype, this so-called Portuguese whistle, in gold work in Kundan and set with rubies, diamonds, and emeralds, is of great importance for the study of Indian jewelry of the period, given its provenance. First recorded in 1619 in the post-mortem inventory of Archduke of Austria Maximilian III, it entered the Schatzkammer des Deutschen Ordens in Vienna and has been attributed to Goan production because of its unique hybrid character. Most probably of late 16th century manufacture, the whistle exhibits special revealing traits. The settings are embedded in the surface, not unlike later Mughal creations. Yet the Kundan technique is here complemented with the prong-like projections. The gold surface, including the lozenge-shaped prongs, is decorated with an intricate, deep-cut, and highly stylized floral pattern made with a sharp cutting gouge. Both the setting and the engraved decoration, unlike the typical Mughal patterns and designs, seems characteristic of a South Indian coastal tradition. The same Deccani or even South Indian aesthetics may be observed in the lotus-shaped jhumka-like gem-studded caps, most notably in the use of unpolished rough octahedral diamond crystals set in the caps attached to the body of the whistle. This same use of diamond octahedra may be seen in this remarkable fingering set with diamonds and a large cabochon-cut ruby from the al-Athar collection. The similar lotus flower setting seems to indicate a Deccani origin for this precious ring, which must date from the second half of the 16th century. One other truly fascinating aspect of our whistle is the use of European-style cut diamonds, which could support Goa as the origin for this object, or at least a direct European influence or even commission. In fact, and as will become more clear during my talk, complex faceting of diamonds was a technique unknown, or at least unpracticed, by local Indian diamond cutters before the arrival of the Portuguese. Curiously, the diamonds used to form the rings decorating the body of the dragon and the head finial are in fact hogbacks, or dodanes, as they were called in French, a term used in Renaissance to describe long, narrow diamonds with two main sloping facets in the crown or top, meeting at an acute angle in a horizontal ridge, and two similar facets in the pavilions. Cut from elongated octahedra, hogback cut diamonds were well suited to form lines and were used in Europe throughout the century as strokes of letters, such as this AHS pendant from the late 16th century. There is little time here to consider much of the available documentation regarding the arrival of the first pieces of Indian jewelry and gemstones in the Lisbon court. The fact that very few pieces of jewelry have survived from this early period underscores just how important the study of these archival documents are for our understanding of the different types of jewels, their artistic quality, and the gem cutting styles used. From the reign of Manuel I, who died in 1521, there are some documents worthy of mention. One of the most interesting of these details the diplomatic and political relations with the powerful empire of Vijayanagara, which extended over South India and the Deccan plateau. A letter from around 1506 from Veera Narasimha to Manuel I is one such case. In his missive, Narasimha refers to Manuel's Brahmin called Friar Luís, the first Portuguese missionary and ambassador to the capital city of Vijayanagara. The Franciscan Friar Luís do Salvador, who had arrived at the court of his father, Tuluva Narasanayaka. The friar's arrival proved propitious for the two emperors, as they were forging together an important alliance against the Sultanate of Bahmani, and which was sealed by Narasimha with the gift-giving of 2 bangles and 6 pieces of cloth for the Portuguese king's son, the young Prince João. Traveling with the Franciscan, a servant of Narasimha came to Portugal bearing gifts for Manuel, including some very precious gem-studded necklaces, rings, and costly pieces of cloth. These, undoubtedly featuring diamonds, were probably the first examples of jewelry made in the imperial city of Vijayanagara to have reached Europe 20 years before the first major Mughal victory in Hindustan by Babur in 1526, when the first Mughal emperor defeated the combined forces of the Muslim Sultan of Delhi and the Hindu Raja of Gwalior on the plains of Panipat near Delhi. But let us return to Manuel I. On the 19th of December 1513, Henrique Nunes de Leão received from Gonçalo Mendes, factor of Calicut, a precious belt for the king. Bought in Calicut by the Portuguese governor Afonso de Albuquerque, the belt was a precious piece of jewelry worn by Hindu kings to fasten above the dhoti, the cloth that hung from the waist to the ankles. These belts are known today in Kerala as arapata. This was a sumptuous belt formed by a double cord decorated with 13 circular elements studded with emeralds, rubies, and diamonds, and weighing over a kilo. South Indian in style, this type of jeweled belt, albeit absent from the depiction of Mughal princes and noblemen, may be seen in contemporary paintings from the reign of Emperor Jahangir, the 4th Mughal emperor and son of Akbar the Great. In this remarkable Deccani-flavored depiction of Ibrahim Adil Shah, the 2nd Sultan of Bijapur, by the court painter Hashim, painted around 1620 in the Mughal royal atelier, a similar belt may be observed, comprised of several gem-studded rosettes set with pearls. Depicted wearing a typical Deccani sword, a basket-hilt khanda set with a filangi double-edged straight blade, the Bijapuri ruler also wears a bracelet, which is similar to a pair of ruby-studded gold bracelets set with diamonds from the al-Sabah collection. In addition to the prized rubies, the bangles are also set with table-cut and Sansi-cut diamonds, as may be seen here, a feature which may point to a strong European influence in Deccani jewelry workshops. With direct access to Asian gems and through an increasing investment in gemstones and sumptuous jeweled pieces, the Portuguese Queen Catarina of Austria transformed her originally modest dowry into one of the most opulent jewelry collections in 16th century Europe. Such access was strengthened by the two-decade residency of her goldsmith, Diogo Vaz, in Goa and Ceylon, where he arrived in 1545 with strict orders to source the best gemstones and to supervise commissions of precious objects for the Queen. In the Queen's famous portrait, painted in 1552 by Antonio Moro, the most extraordinary piece is a short necklace known as the Necklace of the Roses. This necklace, inherited from Catarina's mother, was certainly held in high esteem given the calibrated cut diamonds decorating the center of each rose, which form double rosettes. It demonstrates the high level of mastery attained by European diamond cutters in the first decades of the 16th century, a technical prowess which may be judged from this surviving double rosette set in a gold pendant that belonged to Anna of Denmark, Electress of Saxony. So this is the pendant, and these are the rosettes. These are specially cut diamonds. One of the most interesting documents, and this belongs to the Kronesgewölbe in Dresden, the pendant. One of the most interesting documents concerning the Queen's expenditures on gems, and which is also revealing about the bureaucracy put into effect for the trade of gemstones in 16th century Lisbon, is a charter drawn up in Lisbon and dated to the 20th of March, 1557. In it, Catarina of Austria authorizes the expenditure of a large sum of money, which her treasurer was to pay her candle maker for an uncut diamond purchased in India the previous year. From the document issued by the Casa de India, the special customs house for Asian goods, we learn that the rough diamond weighed 11.45 carats and 5.72 carats following its polishing. This represents a loss of 50% and is a clear indication of a highly advanced diamond cutting technique that sought to attain better brilliance, fire, and scintillation, contrary to the practice of Indian diamond cutters who strove to preserve the maximum weight and the integrity of the gem. A large uncut diamond, Indian diamond, most probably an 81-carat diamond, which the Portuguese king bought in 1549, is discussed in a letter addressed to Catarina of Austria from her court goldsmith and gem cutter Baltasar Cornejo, who was responsible for cutting and polishing the rough stone. To achieve his objective, Cornejo set about cutting the diamond using lead casts of the rough as models and informing the Queen, and I quote, "This afternoon I had just time to cast the two lead models of the diamond in order to know how to cut out the large inclusion, because eliminating the later will also eliminate the other inclusions. And should it please God, when cut and polished, this diamond shall be 40 carats or more, or I think even 45 carats, which is the double the weight of the last diamond sent from India, and it is the biggest I have ever worked on. If it were not for the inclusions, it would easily be 60 carats or more," end quote. Estimating the final weight was relatively straightforward, since lead weighs 3 times as much as diamond. Considering the percentage of rough sacrificed in the previous example, it can easily be concluded that the rough weighed around 80 carats, approximately the same weight of the rough diamond acquired for the king. Gem cutting techniques, in particular for colored gemstones, most probably emerged in India and were developed with increasing knowledge of optics, solid geometry, and crystallography within the medieval Islamic world. One of the people who has worked on these early gem cutting was Manuel Keen, who was the curator of the collection and a very esteemed colleague. Following its introduction to Venice from the East in the late 14th century, diamond cutting attained unsurpassed levels of sophistication in Europe during the 16th century. Knowledge of diamond cleaving, a method of splitting a diamond parallel to the direction of the crystal's grain with a single blow, coupled with the use of perfectly stable, horizontally placed polishing wheels, continuously rotating at high speeds, surpassed the traditional Indian cutting techniques and tools, which were unable to provide the type of pressure, stability, and velocity needed to polish diamonds to perfection. In this engraving done by Jan Luyken from 1694, we see a diamond cutter analyzing the quality of his faceting, checking the stone clamped in a dot, attached to a jam pack holder or tang, which, when polishing, is precisely placed against the turning wheel at the desired angles for faceting. This horizontally placed lap, a finely grooved iron wheel lubricated with a mixture of olive oil and diamond powder, may be seen just next to the cutter, while a woman positioned behind his workstation turns the diamond mill. But let us return to our 45-carat cut diamond. Considering the history, chronology, and weight of the stone, I have identified this gem, probably a table-cut diamond, with the gem set in a ring given by the Portuguese court to Pope Julio III and sent to the papal city on the 8th of August 1551. In Rome, local gem cutters deemed the stone to be of the highest value and rarity. The ring was given in exchange for the joint titles of Grand Master of the 3 Portuguese military orders on behalf of the king. Considered as a personal gift, the Pope in turn gave the jewel to his brother, Baldovino, for safekeeping, thereby entering the family estate. Not unlike other diamonds which are recorded in Portuguese sources, and despite its size and importance, the subsequent history of this diamond remains unknown. Weighing 45 carats, it would have been larger than the Grand Table, a table-cut diamond of about 42 carats, which entered the French crown treasury in 1559 and was regarded as one of the largest and finest in Europe. In fact, we may compare the weight of our stone with 2 very famous surviving diamonds acquired in the late 16th century by Nicolas Harlet, Sieur de Sancy, Minister of Finance to Henri IV of France. The larger, called the Sancy, was sold to James I of England in 1604 and weighs 55 carats. It was sold by Henrietta Maria to Cardinal Mazarin in 1657, who bequeathed it to the French crown. The smaller, called the Beau Sancy, weighs 34.9 carats. It's an almond-shaped and faceted on both sides, and it's remarkable in its complex facet pattern, totaling 110 facets, featuring a central star composed of 8 pentagonal facets round a very small octagonal table. Both stones are testament to the inventiveness of the cutters and the pattern complexity of late 16th century European diamond cutting, exhibiting wonderful light effects. And I'm showing you all of these documentary evidence and these European diamonds because you will see these type of cuttings in the jewelry of this period, in the Mughal jewelry of this period. There are also documented references to Indian jewels and jeweled objects in the treasury of King Sebastião, the successor to the Portuguese throne and grandson of João III. A gold dagger set with diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and pearls was given to the king in 1575 by Ali Adil Shah, the first Sultan of Bijapur, seen here in a contemporary miniature. It must have been similar to this example from the al-Sabah collection, which is a typical Hindu dagger known as kapwa, and favored by the Mughal emperors as presentation weapons. With its, and of course, this has been thoroughly studied by Salam Kaukci. And favored by with its gem-studded gold hilt set in kundan over a steel core. Its Islamic-type mosaic pattern with rubies and fine-colored Iranian turquoises may be seen in Mughal miniatures from the first half of the 17th century, and its geometric style, already in use during the final decades of the 16th century, was deployed concurrently with other decorative schemes during the reigns of Jahangir and his son Shah Jahan. It has been argued by Robert Elgood that this dagger is likely to be Gujarati, as we find the presence of turquoises combined with rubies in the jewels seized by the Portuguese in 1537, following the death of Bahadur Shah, Sultan of Gujarat. I would add that the nature of the diaper pattern of interlocking circles which decorate the chamfered side of the hilt, also of Gujarati origin, as we will see when discussing the gold ceremonial spoon from Akbar's reign, strongly points to a non-Mughal, most likely Gujarati or Deccani origin for this late 16th century jeweled dagger. The year 1575 is also one of great importance for the study of the artistic relations between the Mughal court and the Portuguese. The interest for the Firangis, the Franks, or in other words, the Europeans, artistic accomplishments and European culture began when Emperor Akbar, here seen, encountered the Portuguese in Diu following the Mughal conquest of Gujarat in 1572. When, as described by the Portuguese chronicle Diogo do Couto, the emperor had commissioned Portuguese-style clothes and had worn them with matching dagger and sword. While António Muniz Barreto was governor of the Portuguese state of India, an embassy was sent in 1575 to Goa from Fatehpur Sikri. Its mission, carried out over a 2-year stay, and according to Abul Fazl, poet and official historian of Akbar's reign, was prompted by the emperor's awareness of many, and I quote, curiosities and rarities of the skilled craftsmen of that country. That is the Portuguese state of India, which at the Mughal court was seen as Europe itself. Moreover, the ambassador, Haji Habilullah, was, and I quote, appointed to take with him a large sum of money and the choice articles of India to Goa, and to bring for His Majesty's delectation the wonderful things of that country. Many clever craftsmen were sent with him, who to ability and skill added industry in order to that just as the wonderful productions of that country were being brought away, so also might rare crafts be imported, end quote. This artistic interaction would therefore prove inspirational also for the jeweled objects and jewelry made at the royal workshops, or kharkhanas, and used at the Mughal court and its satellite princely courts. Techniques such as the European-style enameling on gold and silver were introduced, stimulated by the Portuguese supply of imported raw materials as noted by Sir Thomas Roe in 1617, the English ambassador who stayed at Jahangir's court from 1615 to 1618. Knowledge of European gem-setting styles was also introduced by jewelers such as William Leeds, who worked for Akbar, or Augustin Iriard of Bordeaux, who worked at Jahangir's court and was responsible for one of his large gem-studded gold thrones. Diamond cutting and cameo engraving techniques were performed either by Europeans working for the Mughal court or under their direct instruction. Finely carved agate cameos depicting Emperor Shah Jahan stand as testimony to the virtuosity of European lapidaries working for the royal workshops, as may be seen from this example from the Al-Athar collection, which also underscores the influence of European-type portrait medallions and Mannerist-style lockets with their delicately enameled backs. And normally, you don't see the back, but the people at the collection send me the photo. It's very interesting because you can see an influence from the contemporary European embroidery called black work, a style of stitching. Yet, little information exists on jewelry pieces and jeweled objects exchanged between the Portuguese and the Mughal court before the end of the 16th century. A highly complex character in the history of Portuguese-ruled Asia is the admiral and fourth Count of Vidigueira, Dom Francisco da Gama. His personal history is of great interest for the study of Indian jewelry and diamond processing and trade during the rise of the Mughals, and will be the theme of a forthcoming lecture. The great-grandson of the famous Admiral Vasco da Gama, Francisco would serve twice as Viceroy of the Portuguese state of India from 1597 to 1600, and again from 1622 to 1628. During his tenure in Goa, and helped by the presence of the Jesuits in the heart of the empire, he dealt closely with the Mughal court, first with Emperor Akbar and then with his son Jahangir. He was also in direct contact with the Nizam Shahi rulers of the neighboring Sultanate of Ahmadnagar, with Ibrahim Adil Shah of Bijapur, and with the sultans of Golconda, such as Abdullah Qutb Shah, seen here in a rare mid-17th century portrait. In fact, the Viceroy was a major political player in the Deccan during the troublesome first 2 decades of the 17th century, which saw the menacing Mughal expansion towards the south. Having a particular fondness for diamonds, the Viceroy would become most active in the trade, buying both rough and cut stones from Goan diamond cutters, gem traders, and goldsmiths, gemstones which he then sent to members of his family and to his agents in Lisbon to sell them. Surviving letters between Rui Lourenço Tavra, Viceroy from 1609 to 1612, and Francisco da Gama reveal the nature of their diamond business. In January 1609, the recently appointed Viceroy secretly proposes to him that the revenue from the Admiral's sales in Goa would be used in a joint venture for purchasing diamonds, which would then be sent to Lisbon on an yearly basis. Rumors of illicit activities and the scale of his earnings, coupled with unfavorable political gossip at the Madrid court by his enemies, set in motion his removal from office, his excommunication, and the complete confiscation of his estate. Thorough inquiries ensued, with the pursuit by the authorities of any information on the Viceroy's dealings in precious jewelry and gemstone. The most notable gem cutters and jewelers were investigated, and their testimonies are of huge importance for the history of the gem trade in Goa during this period. When the Viceroy was arrested and his estate confiscated, his belongings were carefully listed and described in an inventory. Alongside many pieces of jewelry, mounted and unmounted bezoar and porcupine stones were several rough diamonds sorted by weight and packed in small round boxes from Japan, stored inside the partial gilt silver-lined full-front cabinet. Apart from a diamond ring with a faceted stone of 11 carats, the authorities found 8 diamonds weighing 59 carats, 4 weighing 15 carats, 20 weighing 109 carats, and so on and so on. 1 octahedron of 19 carats and 2 octahedra, so rough stones, weighing 12 carats. This photo gives an idea of the rough crystalline forms or habits common in the diamond alluvial deposits in India, from perfectly shaped octahedra and their elongated or flattened forms to fully resorbed and rounded dodecahedra and their stretch shapes. From this list, we thus know that the Viceroy had in his possession stones which ranged from around 18, 7, 6, 5, 4, and 3 carats in weight. The Admiral's main dealer in jewelry, gemstones, and precious objects in Goa was the diamond cutter Domingos Nunes. He not only gave his testimony on the Viceroy's purchases of precious gems, but submitted a detailed list of the items he made and or sold to the Viceroy during his second term. Of the first, I should mention 11 diamonds cut in the Deccan, 1 8-carat stone also cut in the Deccan, a rough of 6 carats, a large 19-carat stone, and 2 octahedra weighing 14 carats. Shortly before being arrested, the Viceroy was offered 2 stones by Domingos Nunes, one of 25 and the other of 14 carats, alongside 4 other weighing together 37 carats. Not surprisingly, we find references to the word kundan in the Viceroy's inventory, where the following pieces are listed: 2 rock crystal strands worked in kundan, a rock crystal cross and eglets worked in kundan, another strand with blue stones worked in kundan, and a set of rock crystal buttons worked in kundan. The word used in Portuguese, condena, is a simple, direct rendition of the Hindustani word and could suggest a Mughal origin for these pieces despite their European character. Of European form is also this remarkable ceremonial spoon which dates from the final years of Akbar's reign. Modeled after a silver prototype, its decoration epitomizes the hybrid character of Mughal art, while its craftsmanship, as may be seen from the micrographs, stands as testimony to the technical virtuosity reached in the imperial workshops, not only in the precise cutting of the inlaid gems, but also in the minutely engraved decoration of the gold surface, which foreshadows the looser floral style which blossomed during the reign of Jahangir. The clearly Iranian nature of its floral decoration has been sufficiently emphasized and follows the more rigid floral patterns of Timurid and early Safavid art, which features Chinese motifs such as the stylized lotus flower of, or Baoxianghua, used in the widely circulated Yuan and early Ming dynasty porcelain, later copied in Iran and Turkey. However, the use of a local centuries-old diaper pattern of interlocking circles, a motif found in medieval printed cottons made in Gujarat, has seemingly passed unnoticed. The wide-ranging Islamic connections are also apparent on the geometric trellis pattern used on the back of the handle, which is reminiscent of pierced jali or perforated stone latticed screens, which are characteristic of the court architecture of the Deccan Sultanates and Mughal India. Nonetheless, its most striking aspect, apart from the use of unpolished, minute diamond octahedra on the finial, is the complex pattern of the faceted diamond that crowns the gem-studded finial. In fact, its cut, which features a small octagonal table and star-like crown, must be identified with the so-called Sancy cut, for which the beau Sancy serves as an eloquent parallel. This is the diamond and the Sancy. As I have stressed already, and Jack Ogden's research has demonstrated, ample surviving evidence shows that complex diamond cuts, such as this, were not within the reach of the instruments and materials used in India at the time, such as the bow-driven, vertically placed polishing wheels that are even today are used. While praising the expertise of Indian diamond cutters in cleaving, Tavernier emphasizes that, and I quote, "They cannot give that lively polished stones as we give them in Europe, and I believe the reason is that their wheel does not run so fast as ours. Made of steel and grooved with emery, their wheel needs to be refashioned every 24 hours, taken apart and remounted, making it not as flat as the first time. If they had iron wheels, as we do, not grooved with emery but filed, there would be no need to dismount them for refiling, and they might polish their stones better than they do." They refashion their wheels every 24 hours because after some time polishing the gems, the wheel becomes as smooth and polished as glass. And if no new grooving is made on the wheel, the diamond powder necessary for polishing will not adhere to the wheel. Whereas, if it stays, there is more work done in an hour than otherwise in two, end quote. In point of fact, the limitations of Indian diamond cutting technology are clearly evident in the minimal polishing of the so-called Shah diamond, an 88.7 carat elongated crystal which bears inscriptions of previous owners such as Burham Nizam Shah, Sultan of Ahmadnagar, dated about 1591, and Shah Jahan, dated about 1641. More revealing is the polishing of the so-called Shah Jahan diamond from the Al-Sabah collection, amulet-shaped flat-cut stone convincingly identified from a miniature portrait of the emperor aged 25. The 56.7 carat diamond stands as testimony to Tavernier's words, with its somewhat crude faceting and hasty polishing, as may be seen from the stone's highly grooved polished lines and pitted surface. In other surviving early pieces of Mughal jewelry and jeweled objects, we find European cut diamonds. Their presence is not surprising, as we know European lapidaries were at Akbar's court, and that around 1622, and according to Edward Terry, chaplain of Sir Thomas Roe, Jahangir paid the Jesuits to cut some diamonds in his treasury, or that, as related by Tavernier, the Venetian diamond cutter Hortensio Borgio was fined by Aurangzeb in 1665 because he had greatly reduced the weight of one of the emperor's largest diamonds, likely the Orlov, which is actually the famous Great Mughal diamond. In this gem-studded gold lock from the scabbard of a Qatar dagger in the al-Sabah collection, featuring a large central stylized lotus and Ottoman-style carnations, as we can see here. Following a looser floral decorative scheme typical of Jahangir's reign, we find some clearly European-cut diamonds. Although the Kundan setting of the central stone might have been reworked at some point, possibly due to its large size, the stones seem contemporary with their setting. While some of the diamonds forming the lotus petals might be characterized as ill-shaped rose cuts with their typical triangular facets, the central stone features lozenge-shaped facets and can be identified with the late 16th century V-cut, also known as checker cut. This same cut may also be seen in this pendant, namely from the micrographs here, which must date from Jahangir's reign. Perfectly polished rose-cut diamonds, most definitely of European manufacture, may be seen in this remarkable double Yali bracelet clasp in the al-Sabah collection from the first decades of the 17th century. The earliest securely dated rose cuts are not to be found in the Cheapside hoard around 1640, as previously assumed, but as Herbert Tillander, a noted scholar on diamond cuts, has pointed out in the so-called fellowship pendant in the Grünes Gewölbe from circa 1591-1601. In fact, Francisco da Gama's inventory proves that rose-cut diamonds were already favored in Goa in the late 1620s, where 2 lasks of new rose cuts, or in Portuguese, lascas de rosa nova, weighing 12 carats are listed. It is thus tempting to posit a Goan origin for the rose cuts used in these early Mughal pieces of jewelry, of which many important examples belong to the al-Sabah collection. In these intriguing double-sided, almost transparent pendants, which might also reveal some European influence in their design, some featuring a cross-shaped design, which has been interpreted as somewhat Christian in iconography, we may see European-style table-cut diamonds, like in this case, alongside fancy-cut diamonds. You can see here and here. These are really similar to the Sancy diamonds that we saw for late 16th century Europe. These diamonds and their cutting styles are the subject of ongoing research and will serve as subjects for following lectures. Thank you very much for your patience and attention.